Hi guys, I'm Minnie Mia, and today I'm going to be doing a Draw My Life story. Because why not? I was born 2 years after my sister, and I was the cutest child ever. And this might be cheating, but I'm going to put in a real picture in here, because I can. I had the most magical childhood anyone could have. I grew up in the country. Me and my sister lived half in our imaginations, making up stories about the world around us, searching for fairies, climbing trees, and exploring. Every holiday we would spend with our cousins, who I loved spending time with more than anything. Every winter we would go to the mountain and ski. I was quiet in school and most of my friends were boys. Usually I would play on my own in the bars until my hands peeled. I got prizes every prize giving. But soon this life came to an end. At 7 years old we changed cities for Dad's work. I tried doing heaps of extra classes outside of school. I did art, gymnastics, athletics, swimming. Most of them didn't really stick. Since both my parents are pilots, we actually went travelling around the world at a very young age. We went to Hong Kong, England, LA, New York, and where else? Austria and Germany. We flew over icebergs and the Sahara Desert. In England, we went on the London Eye and explored the Tower of London. In Hong Kong, we struggled through the heat, saw panda bears, and went on roller coasters. In Austria, we swam in Selim Sea and ate lots of ice cream. We visited our cousins in New York and went to Disneyland and went on even more roller coasters. I even bungee jumped off the Sky Tower in New Zealand twice. So back to school. The rest of primary was at this new school. I was quiet enough to be labelled selectively mute. I had one friend who I could be myself around, and we had great fun. Until she switched schools at age 10. After that, I was always alone or sitting with a group of people, never speaking, just listening and wishing I could be like everyone else and have friends. I was always terrified I would humiliate myself or that people wouldn't like me. I felt weird and ugly and like an alien, not quite as good as everyone else. But by far, my favourite part of school was sports and games. We would play capture the flag and dodgeball and other things every afternoon. I would play foursquare every break and netball every Saturday. I didn't have to be good at speaking for these things, only running, aiming and throwing, and I was. It made up a huge part of my identity when I felt like I didn't have much of one. I was by far the fastest girl in my class. I was also the best in my class at sailing. I was chosen to compete for my class, but I broke my arm falling off a horse, and so I couldn't. I started missing months of school in my final primary year, too anxious to go, especially when we started doing speeches and presentations. I would stay home alone and watch television. This was the first time I thought, I could just not eat all day since no one's watching me. It stemmed more from a desire to challenge myself than anything else. I would usually just get hungry and then go eat. I wasn't that bothered. And then one day, I was looking in this magazine, and my mind just shifted, and suddenly I had this crystal clear thought. All I had to do was not eat much, and then I would look beautiful, and then I would never have to worry about being worthless or people not liking me ever again. And so during the 6-week holidays between primary and high school, I ate less and less, and then the less I ate, the more terrifying food became. Thoughts about what I could eat and the number on the scale going down was all that mattered to me. It became every thought in my head every hour of every day. By the time high school started, I could hardly make it through the day. I was always freezing, and I felt more alienated than ever from the thousands of people around me. When I started fainting every day, I was kicked out of school. I had no will left to live and stopped eating altogether. In weeks, I was sectioned into a psych ward. My family was allowed to visit every 2 weeks, and for 13-year-old me, that was pretty terrifying. I wasn't allowed to walk. I had a wheelchair and was on 24-hour surveillance. I was diagnosed with anorexia and depression. I was forced to eat and gain weight. I met a bunch of people in there, almost all a lot older than me. Everyone had some story. In a way, I liked it in there. It was nice to be taken seriously, and it felt like my life was important. I didn't feel like an alien in the ward. It felt like everyone was just as crazy as I was, and so no one was really crazy at all. There was no more pretending like nothing mattered and like everything was fine. No social games. The idea of going back out into the world, full of pretending and people I didn't understand, became the real terror. As I ate and gained back the weight, I slowly came back to myself. But I would feel a loneliness and emptiness threatening to swallow me whole when I was alone. After 3 months, I was sent back into the world. I simply couldn't go back to school. And so I spent the next few years at home with correspondence work, generally too afraid to simply leave the house. I hated how I looked more than I ever had. And the idea of someone seeing me was petrifying and awful. Those few years were easily the worst of my life. I was in so much pain each and every day, so alone and hating myself so much. I would spend as much time as I could trying to forget I existed, playing games, watching movies, or reading books. I still had my sister, and she was my very best friend. Eventually I knew I couldn't live like this any longer, and I thought the only way out was to go back to anorexia, so I got sick again, started going out more again. I would walk and run for hours and hours every day. I used to walk for hours straight by myself, down to the ocean, and do cartwheels on the beach. It was partly for exercise and partly for fun. We changed cities again, and I started a new school at which I had no friends, and since I was too anxious and tired to keep up, I dropped out after a few terms. I got really sick again and wound up in hospital a few more times. I was then diagnosed with eating disorder, borderline personality disorder, severe social anxiety, and major depressive episodes. One time I met this amazing boy in hospital who died a day after I left. I will never forget him, and I wish I had stayed or said the right things to save him. I would spend hours upon hours every day exploring as far as I could, climbing hills, learning the city, mapping the gardens, and listening to music everywhere I went. Sometimes I would walk all through the night. I would have moments on top of hills where I would feel completely happy and free. They are some of the best memories I have. I've been in recovery for a while now, and I really do have a lot of joy in me. I still find it hard to go out and talk to people, which is one of the reasons I'm here talking to you right now, but there is so much more that matters to me now. I have now also climbed mountains and been to Australia, and I'm sure in the future I will have a lot more to write, but for now, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video.